A new study by ClearPoint Credit Counseling Solutions and the Kaiser Foundation says 1 in 3 Americans report having difficulty paying their medical bills. Rebecca Gershowitz with ClearPoint says the research revealed a surprising fact.
It was really interesting to find that the majority of those people are people who carry insurance right now. Typically, when you think of medical problems and medical debts, you think of the uninsured.
Let's cut through the medical gauze, okay? We've been hearing about the abuse of pill mills in America for years, even decades. There are places where legitimate and illegitimate doctors, pharmacies, and clinics are dosing out mountains of pills for no legit medical purpose whatsoever, often handing out the wrong meds and then stashing the cash in their pocket. It's against the law in almost every state in America, but for some reason, it's not against the law in every state when it comes down to the specific reasons and laws, which means these cretins are doing business somewhere and always seem to be ahead of the law. Jeb Bush is now making this a campaign issue. So let's get some reality on how much of the fight is lip service and how much is shutting down the crooks. Welcome back to the Newsmax health editor and co-author of Da Vinci's Baby Boomer Survival Guide. Always a pleasure to have Nick Tate on the show. Mr. Tate, Happy New Year, sir.
Same to you. Good to be here.
So here's Jeb Bush. Now, his daughter Noelle was arrested back in 2002 for prescription drug fraud. She tried to buy Xanax using a fake script. So he knows something about this. But when he talks about the pill mills, and I want to bring up the numbers here, Miami Herald, and this goes back to 2014, actually 2015, August, new study, modest decreases on a Florida crackdown in pill mills. Here's the thing that caught me. A year after the law went into effect, researchers found the number of opioid prescriptions written in Florida decreased 1.4%. I'm not impressed. 1.4% all the years we've been talking about this, and that small an amount we're able to stop. This is lip service.
That's right. Well, it's a step in the right direction, but it's a very, very small step, as you point out. I mean, we're talking about millions of prescriptions that are written either illegally or people go to different doctors and they get different scripts and they break them up, sell them on the street, and we're talking about things like Vicodin, painkillers. We're not talking about heroin. We're talking about prescription legal drugs that people are acquiring illegally in different states. The database and the monitoring is a really good idea. They need to refine it and make it better. There are limitations that tie the hands of law enforcement in many states that have these monitoring systems. In some cases, you have to have a search warrant before you can even look at the database to see if someone's abusing this system.
Why is there no concerted effort here nationally to get a handle on this? Because it would seem that when you get the states involved, again, like in so many other issues we talk about, everything gets screwed up.
That's right. Well, there's a patchwork of different monitoring systems. They don't interact. So if you're an addict in Georgia, all you do is drive across the state to Florida and buy your drugs, and there's no interstate tracking. So what's really needed is kind of a federal level policy and even a cabinet level position. Now, Jeb Bush is talking about making a drug czar cabinet level position, not to go after illegal street drugs, but prescription drugs. That would help, but what is really needed is the ability for the state monitoring systems to work together across state borders, and we're just not doing a good job of that.
Well, some people want less government, I get it, but is it fair to say that in a situation like this and the patchwork that you're talking about here, Jeb Bush is right? We need somebody sitting at the forefront of this and running this on a federal level.
Jeb Bush is to be credited for raising this issue at that level and putting it in front of people so we recognize what the problem is. Whether the specific plans he has will actually work or not remains to be seen. You don't need a federal level drug czar to make this happen. We have interstate commerce with banking. We have interstate commerce that's allowed with a great number of commerce. This should happen with medicine, in my opinion, and there's no reason it shouldn't.
A couple of minutes. Let's refer back to exactly the soundbite that we had coming into this segment here, because I wanted to get to this. A New York Times story that broke today. New poll, the Times and Kaiser Family Foundation. Roughly 20% of the people under age 65 with health insurance. They can't make their medical bills over the last year. They are being driven into a ridiculous amount of medical debt here. How much of the blame is the Affordable Health Care Act, but how much of this is simply that we can't stop what people and what companies are charging that drives people into debt?
Well, it's both, really. The real problem with the Affordable Care Act is it does very little to lower costs. It's called the Affordable Care Act, but the truth is it's really a misnomer. Premiums are up by 7.5% this year. They've gone up 27% in the last 5 years for a typical American family. Individual costs for deductibles are rising. 4 in 10 people who work for a company have a high deductible plan. And what the problem is, the solution from Obamacare's, from the perspective of Obamacare's authors, was give everybody insurance, and then we'll all have better health care. It'll drive down costs. We'll have better care. But the truth is that it hasn't. Obamacare has driven up the cost for health care. Whatever side of this issue you're on, you cannot dispute that premiums are higher than they were 5 years ago. Deductibles are higher, and the net effect what I see from the numbers I look at is that folks are not getting care because they want to hold costs down.
I got about 30 seconds left here, but is it not fair to say, and we can talk about this another time, the gouging of hospitals, medical professionals, medical providers, equipment providers, it's a ridiculous amount of money that they just stick people with. You can't get away from it.
The answer is yes, and I would add to that drug manufacturers. If we look at Hep C and cancer drugs, you can spend $1,000 a day on medicine that may or may not be covered by insurance. So whether you have a health plan or not does not matter if you need that drug to save your life and you can't afford it.
So there's a lot more here than just one instance. We got to go after a lot of people here to get people out of debt.
I would think so.
And that's I've seen some of these prices before, what they come down to for the medical equipment itself, and that is frightening. Mr. Tate, always a pleasure, my friend. By the way, Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Good to see you again. All right. Now, the POTUS candidate who is secretly plotting to eat your brain. Next on The Hard Line.